Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of This Is My Bourbon podcast. I'm Perry, your host, and I have a couple of very special guests on the show today. This is a first. We've not actually had movie producers, movie directors on the show before, but this is something really cool that we're about to do. So I'm going to let y'all introduce yourselves.
Oh, so this is Josh Reedford. I'm a producer with the film production company Mr. Pictures, and I'm also the producer of the upcoming film Bullitt County.
Yeah.
And I'm David McCracken. I wrote, directed the movie, and I play Keaton in the movie as well.
Awesome. Well, Josh, David, thank you all so much for being on the show.
Absolutely.
So Bullitt County, give a little bit of a synopsis, just kind of the movie itself. Before we get into like the, more the production aspects of it.
Sure. So the movie takes place in 1977. It's an action thriller about these four friends who reunite after 10 years to get together for a bachelor party, and they want to go on the it's a fictional. It's called the Bluegrass Bourbon Trail. It's very similar to what we have now, but obviously none of that existed in the 70s. But we bend the facts a little bit for
right.
narrative.
Right.
So they want to go on this Bluegrass Bourbon Trail, and they discover that a lot of their favorite distilleries have now been turned into wineries, because mid 70s things in the bourbon industry weren't as amazing as they are now.
Right, yeah.
So that kind of plays into it. But then they hear about this legend of buried prohibition money that might be hidden out somewhere in Bullitt County, Kentucky. And so they go off and search for that and end up turning against each other and, pursued through the woods and facing the elements, that kind of thing. And it takes off in a very thriller direction. It's a pretty fun movie.
It sounds like it, especially considering all the murder that's involved.
Oh, yeah.
That's always fun.
So where are you guys from originally?
We're both from Evansville, Indiana.
Okay. So
And
not
now-
actually Kentucky boys. Yeah.
Not Kentucky, but we spent a lot of time there growing up. And, we completed the craft trail, I think, twice.
Yep.
Wow.
And the regular bourbon trail at least twice as well.
Yeah.
So we've been around the block.
We did our quote-unquote research very thoroughly.
Very much. We even made it all the way out to Old Pogue and drove
nice.
all over the place trying to find certain smaller craft places that were out of the way. So, yeah,
Right.
we've gotten lost in Kentucky a lot.
Well, hey, there's no better place to get lost, right?
Absolutely.
That's
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm guessing you guys then are fairly big bourbon drinkers.
Yes.
Based on that comment. Yeah.
I would say we qualify as that.
Well, good. It's a bourbon podcast, so we can
Yeah.
actually talk about bourbon a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you guys tend to sip on as your maybe daily drinker, or what do you gravitate towards?
David?
It depends on how I want to treat myself. If I want to be a cheapskate, I usually dig into some Old Crow.
Oh, wow.
If I want to be a
That is
cheapskate, which is
yeah.
And then if I want to, step it up a notch, I do like the standard Woodford. And if I want to be really nice to myself, I do the Woodford Double Oaked or the Bullitt 10-year.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Josh?
I think when if I'm making cheap mixed drinks, there's a really, really great discount on John B. Stetson at my local liquor store, and it works pretty well for that. But no, when I'm just like sipping on something that I want to enjoy the actual bourbon, I wish I knew which particular recipe it was, but there's one of the Four Roses single barrel combos
Oh, nice.
that I tried it the first time, and I haven't been able to find another one like it, but that one I still have a couple of those. That's always good. I'm kind of with David on the Bullitt 10-year small batch. I love that. And
It's a great bourbon, yeah.
It really is. I have a bottle of their cask strength that I still haven't tried yet, but I'm kind of looking forward to that.
Yeah,
And-
definitely try that.
Awesome.
do.
Yeah, will do. And yeah, the Woodford Double Oaked is also. We have some fun stories from the first time that we got that one, and I like it, and I also just like the memories that it evokes. So yeah, those are kind of my go-tos as well.
We also both like Noah's Mill too.
Oh yeah,
Noah's Mill's very
Can't
good.
forget
yeah.
that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it
Yeah.
smells great.
Willett
So-
does some good stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. So what it kind of sounds like is that you're alluding to these stories that you've developed with with your relationship with bourbon. What were some of the stories that kind of inspired you, David, when you were preparing to write this movie? And you also said you directed and you starred in it too, right?
That's right. Mhm.
So the triple threat. What was some of your inspiration behind this film?
It was actually during some formative a period of time in my life and Josh's life. I was the best man at his wedding, and I played Gordy's best man in the movie. And honestly, I forget how it coincided. I believe I had to do some. I was doing another script that had to do with bourbon in Kentucky, and I think I was going to do some research for that and go on the trail. And then I just told Josh about it, and we just kind of did the trail together it was actually over in the winter, so it was a really nice, like, kind of Christmassy time. It was a really good time to do it because they weren't very busy, the distilleries, and you got kind of the more personal touch from all of the the folks there. And so we got some nice behind the scenes looks that maybe a lot of people wouldn't normally get. And so I think it was over the course of a couple weeks, Josh and I would be in our home base in Evansville, and we'd go down and hit a few and kind of back and forth. And we just really fell in love with the whole experience. I think up till then, we hadn't. Bourbon was, we drank bourbon, but it wasn't something that we really thought much about. And going through that whole process, just kind of like it was so much about the process, the tradition, the earthiness of it all. Josh and I are big campers, so we love the outdoors. And so it just all kind of coalesced. It was very much like bourbon came to symbolize a lot about us in terms of the things that we like, not just the bourbon itself, but everything behind it. And so through that, it kind of became this thing of, like, we really, bonded over bourbon. We were already best friends. We'd been since high school. But it was something that was like, it just made sense for a movie because the bourbon world's so rich, and it does lend itself so easily to symbolism of, like, nostalgia and friendship. And even the color of it, we wanted to mimic that for the color palette of the movie and shoot it in the fall. So it just made... It just, from that experience, it sprung all these other ideas for the movie.
Let's talk to a little bit about the setting of the movie, because it's a very interesting time period. You kind of alluded to that a little bit as well, and also just the actual location, Bullitt County. Why Bullitt County over, say, like
McCracken County?
Yeah, or Franklin, or places where it's more well known for bourbon.
It's the name. Mm-hmm. It sounds like a thriller.
Yeah,
it really was. We went during our travels. It just was a name that stuck out when we would see that sign, "You're entering Bullitt County," and we thought that sounds very menacing.
Yeah, it's got that. Because it's got that play on words. Bullet and a bullet. It's because that kind of plays into it, and the so it's just got it's that like that very biting sound. Bullet.
Sorry, I lost you a little bit there.
Oh no, you're fine. I was just rambling about bullets.
Put the gun down.
No, it's all good.
But yeah, it really was as simple as that. It's just the name. It's a very strong name,
like Jurassic Park.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys film in Bullitt County?
We didn't get a chance to, honestly, because we had, movie productions are like a traveling circus. So to try to move that many people around, especially a lot of the stuff we were shooting, it's out in the woods. It's supposed to be in the middle of nowhere or at farmhouses. And so we got real close to there. We did shoot in Kentucky, but we were not able to. I don't think we actually stepped foot in Bullitt County. We did go there, obviously, for research, and we were in contact with the tourism.
Yeah, and we took we took some of the cast and crew on a day off through a couple of the places there.
Right.
So I'm sure there's probably some behind the scenes video or pictures and stuff of us being in actual Bullitt County, but I don't think anything in the movie made it to that.
And we also did a lot of location scouting there in terms of pictures, photos, and stuff to give to the team.
Yeah.
So for the production design, they could make, other parts of Indiana and Kentucky look like Bullitt County. So that's why we've had a lot of people from Bullitt County swear they recognize parts in the movie, and we said, well, we promised it's not really Bullitt County, but we did try to make it look
emulate
like
that.
So
yeah. One of the you guys sent me the EPK, just to the electronic press kit, to kind of look over before we chatted about this. One of the things that I of course noticed was when it was completed. It was completed October of last year. How long was this movie kind of in production in terms of like all the way from inception up till when it was completed last year?
Well, we started filming almost exactly 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. So production was a month. We went mid-October to mid-November of 2016, and then so the movie took a little under a full year to complete after production. But before production, it's kind of hard to tell because pre-production and story development and things like that is just such a nebulous process. But it was
we were probably working on it for
2 or 3 years.
I would say 2 years.
2 years,
almost. Yeah.
It was a long time.
Yeah.
But once we got going, we really it was a very fast process for a film of this nature. We really had our ducks in a row to be able to finish it before the world premiere at Austin Film Festival last year.
Yeah. Let's chat too a little bit about the casting behind it. You have a pretty diverse cast, in terms of where all these people are coming from. So talk about the main players in this movie, and not just their the people behind the characters, but also what their characters actually are like in the movie.
So Mike Nelson, the lead actor, I met him whenever I was doing my USC thesis at the graduate film program at USC. And so I cast him there. It was a really tough role. It was like a comedy drama role, and I saw a lot of people for it, couldn't find the right person, and finally came across him and got along with him really well. He was great to work with, great actor. And through that process, I actually didn't know it when we cast him, but he's from northern Indiana. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, so he lives in LA now. And so I had a great experience on that. And then after, when we were developing this movie, it was one of the first decisions made about it, even before I started writing, was to write the role for him. Mm-hmm. And so because it is like a different role, the character he plays is very complicated, and he's got some dark demons, suppressed, and so the whole movie is kind of about this guy that has a lot of suppressed problems, and it's the whole keep it bottled up metaphor of bourbon, and he's not able to beat it, and so that's it. So he kind of goes a little bonkers. And so I just thought, for a primarily comedic actor like him, I really thought it would be interesting to see him do some scary, darker stuff. Mm-hmm. Let's see, Napoleon, the British fellow, I met him at a directing project I did at USC as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then, Jenny, I guess
Jenny was someone that we found. Too. We found her through it. We watched a lot of casting videos, and she kind of came out on top, and just sort of kind of understood this character of Robin, of a girl who's kind of just been one of the guys, but she's also tried to kind of get away and create her own life, and she gets thrown into this situation of like these other guys who are kind of just stuck back in how they used to be, and she's trying to fight this loyalty of friendship, but also trying to be her own woman, and there's also a larger metaphor in the film of kind of a woman being stuck in a violent man's world and kind of trying to deal with that. And so she's quite a complex character, and I think Jenny did a really good job of tapping into that.
So one of the things too that's really stood out to me about everything that you've discussed about the movie so far, and that I've found from reading about it, was that you in your director's statement you have to put in this caveat of it's still a fun movie, I promise. How are you able to balance what you consider the fun aspects of it with some of these heavier topics and the more gruesome aspects of the movie as well?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that, we wanted to do something that tackled some serious issues, but do it in an entertaining way, because I think the movies that we always respond to are the ones that are first and foremost entertaining, and then the ones that are the best are the ones that entertain you and then stick with you. And so we wanted to do something like that wasn't messagey or in your face about issues and things like that. We wanted it to be an entertaining movie first and foremost, and it is actually. A lot of the people that we've talked to after screenings and stuff, they do say they're surprised how funny it is, because we did make sure. I think every single actor in this movie is primarily a comedic actor, and we did that on purpose because we knew that some of the darker stuff could go way too heavy unless it was tempered by comedy, basically. So it is a funny movie, and it is an enjoyable one, and we made sure to go real over the top and fun and bombastic with it all.
Yeah. And it's kind of in that spirit of some of our favorite movies from the 70s, things like Easy Rider, which, the first half of the movie is just this goofy kind of road trip on motorcycles and, guys getting high and just like talking about nothing. And it's just like it's a very fun, just kind of romp, but then it gets really weird and dark. But so many of that kind of style movie, they did such a good job of being able to do both of those, have their cake and eat it too. And we wanted to kind of emulate that with this one. I think we succeeded.
David, was it challenging for you as an actor to kind of balance those two sides to a character in that sense?
Well, yeah, for me that was something I always had to keep in mind, because because I was wearing a lot of hats, and because it is just you're always trying to beat the clock every day of production. Usually the acting would be the last thing on my mind. And so it was pretty often where I would just be memorizing them right before I had to do it, the lines. And so in those cases, you're kind of just defaulting to every conversation that you've had with the other actors and the thoughts you've had and everything. And I constantly had to remind myself that of the direction that I was giving everybody, which was big. We're all going really big. Like,
sure.
Don't feel like you're overacting in this movie, and because it's that type of movie. And so I had to constantly remind myself, because it is easier to just try to go subtle. And when you're acting big, you feel kind of odd. It just feels like, oh, this is kind of tacky. But I constantly had to remind myself of that aspect, the fun aspect of it, because it is very easy to just kind of go straight down the middle. But we wanted to have kind of a diagonal approach to a lot of the material.
Josh, talk a little bit too about your side of it, because you're the producer on the movie. What was what were some of the more challenging aspects of your job with this particular movie, and what excited you about it? What made you want to keep putting 100% into it?
Sure. It's funny, the things that I thought were going to be the biggest challenges ended up not being the biggest challenges. I think one of the questions that we get a lot is, was it just so difficult to make a movie set in the 1970s. And honestly, that was one of the easier parts of putting it all together. We knew that this small town in southern Indiana looked like a town out of the 70s. We knew that there was a lot of people that would be willing to just bring old cars to set and just let us use them for the day. It was really the costuming was probably easier because it was 70s, because finding retro clothes like that are just easier. So, trying to kind of watch out for all of that stuff, that was one of the easier parts of it, and kind of one of the exciting things of kind of building this world. As with any indie movie, I think one of the biggest challenges was just making sure that we had all the funding, and that was just So there was it wasn't like somebody just wrote us a check for the whole thing. It was like piecemeal.
Oh, you didn't get that?
Oh, I didn't get that. Oh, no.
Whoops.
Oh, gosh.
The post office. Dang it.
But, we just, we piecemealed it together from a bunch of different sources, and it was an ongoing process, and we just made it work as we went along. So that was honestly one of the most challenging, but everything about it was so rewarding to go out and be finding all of these people that were going to be part of our crew and bring them all together and kind of like build this. It was almost like a family by the time we ended filming, because everyone just kind of came together, and it was really neat to kind of be back in our home turf in Evansville,
Sure.
In southern Indiana, and to bring all of these people into that. And by the end of the whole process, I kind of felt like this proud father of this whole motley crew of people.
You definitely had the gray hairs.
I did. That's true. And then there was just all the things that I didn't expect, like the day that we just destroyed a toilet at this one of the locations, and I ended up spending the evening after everybody went home trying to repair a toilet. Like, nobody tells you you're going to have to do that kind of thing.
And more than once.
Once.
There were several toilets that got broken.
Yeah, but it's like you just kind of take it one day at a time and one challenge at a time, and it's kind of like just solving a bunch of puzzles, and I like that kind of thing drives me, and I love the creative components of it and the logistical components of it, and I like that my job kind of is where that Venn diagram of those kind of things meet, and that's what gets me out of bed every day.
Yeah, and Josh and I have a really great relationship in that respect, because we are both logistic-minded and creative-minded, and so we're actually on this on Bullitt County. There were a number of problems that came up even before we started shooting that were just so rewarding to solve, because a logistic issue would come up and we'd think, I'll give you a great example. So originally, in an early draft of the script, the characters all go to some distilleries, and so we wanted to shoot in some real distilleries. And so we talked to some, and a lot of them weren't able to because of other deals they had with other reality shows or things like that. It was
Right.
brand issues and all that. And so for one reason or another, we just weren't able to work it out with them. And so we thought, well, geez, we're making a bourbon movie on the trail, and there's no distilleries in this. Like, what are we going to do? And then so we talked it over, and we came up with the idea that, well, the movie's about these guys, these friends that are trying to relive the good old days, and they're not able to because you can't, because the past is irrepeatable, or unrepeatable. I'm sorry. And so it made perfect sense then that they actually would try to go to distilleries, but every distillery has been converted to a winery because of what Josh was saying earlier, how bourbon took a dive in the 70s. And so it worked on a factual basis. It worked symbolically. It made it a lot funnier for these characters to show up and see all these women drinking wine and going, what is going on?
All it wanted was a glass of bourbon.
Yeah. And it was all because we couldn't logistically work out filming in distilleries, and it made the movie that much better. And there were time after time of issues like that problems that seemed like they were going to tank the movie and ended up making the movie better.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that you guys pushed through and were able to overcome all of that is a testament to how, much passion you had for this movie and how much you had invested in it.
For sure.
As well. So yeah, that's really cool to hear. David, do you consider yourself more writer, more director, more actor, or are you able to justify or put a distinction between any of those three?
Honestly, they kind of scratch different itches.
Sure.
Because directing is so collaborative, and it is, like Josh was saying, it's problem solving at spur of the moment. It's anything you can't even think of will pop up, and you have to have an answer, or you have to know how to find the answer. Writing is so much more solitary. So it does allow you to kind of be a little more thoughtful and try new things, whereas directing and acting, usually because there's the ticking clock every day, you kind of have to get it right on the first or second go, because there's just not a lot of time to mess around. Yeah. Unless you can build in some rehearsals for the acting, but even then, it's just a different thing. You're not on the set with all the pressures that come along with that. So I don't really see myself as more of one or the other. I just find them very enjoyable in different ways, and so they're all creative in their own way, and they're all problem solvy in their own ways too.
I lost you a little bit there, but I think I got what you were.
I think I got what you were.
Well, there's a lot of thoughts that you have to put down.
Yeah, and it is. But all of that again is only possible because we had such a good crew and such a good cast, and we were supported by our families and friends in the community. Because if you don't have a strong support system, you can't do that. You can't do all of that.
What kind of effect did the act of drinking bourbon have on the production of this movie? Like, I know that like Gordy is, you said he's a recovering alcoholic, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So how did that play into the themes that were created by the film, and how did it influence the way that you wanted to portray these characters too?
Well, on a practical level, we were shooting in the cold at night, and it was a good way to warm up.
It's also really good for morale.
It's good for morale. I mean, I don't know. I honestly, I was just very happy that so many people that came to Indiana to work on the movie, all the cast and crew, a lot of them had never had bourbon. Mm-hmm. And so the movie itself just made a lot of new bourbon fans.
It did. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think the finished film and the story that is actually, what became the screenplay is very different than what we originally set out to make. And obviously it's better than what our original idea was, because everything kind of developed over time. But at the very core of it, the whole thing was inspired by David and I's love of bourbon, and we wanted to do something that could just kind of take that, something that we were passionate about, and then how do we just infuse that into a movie? And so I think that, anybody that hung out with us for any semi-extended period of time could see, one, that we were very passionate about bourbon. I mean, you could hand us a bottle and probably not get us to shut up about an experience at that distillery that we got it from. Plop down a bottle of Noah's Mill, and I can tell you about all 4 times that I've been to Willett and how each one is different, and how I just I go there and I'm at peace with the world, and so I think I think people could sense that passion coming through for bourbon, and then see how that translated into our passion for filmmaking, and how this was kind of this beautiful melding of those two things. And I don't know, I feel like that just sort of distilled its way into I did not mean to do that. Thank you. I'll be here all day. But yeah, that sort of just distilled itself into the production itself. I don't know if that's an answer to the question that you specifically asked, but I feel like that's kind of what happened.
I guess it was just kind of the, how did bourbon really influence the, the production behind it? So I think, that question was definitely answered. A couple things before we get wrapped up here. On a lighter note, what would you say is the perfect bourbon to pair with Bullitt County? Like if you're sitting down, do you want, a lighter pour, lower proof, or you want something maybe, barrel proof, older aged? What would be a really good bourbon to pair with Bullitt County?
For me, I would honestly say you should pair. I would pair like a rye with it, which because it's kind of smooth, but it's also got like a spicy kick to it, and kind of unnerves you a little bit. Nah, that's my opinion.
Wow. We tried actually. We got one of those small barrels.
Oh yeah.
Those kind of personal barrels. We got one prior to production and filled it with White Dog, so that it could age by the time we started, and we could all toast. But we kind of screwed it up, and it was just basically a White Dog. So we thought we were creating a bourbon that could be paired with the movie, but instead it just sat in a barrel and didn't age.
Yeah.
So
that didn't work.
So we're not master distillers yet.
Well, that's okay. That's all right. Last
That's
question
right.
Before we get wrapped up here. What do you guys have planned for the future? What's next after Bullitt County?
Right now we're working on a horror movie that's also takes place in the 70s. It's a ghost, female-driven ghost story. It's actually over the course of 3 generations. So we have 3. Bullitt County is over 2 decades. It's the 60s and the 70s, and this one's 1917, 1977, and then 2017. So it's a more ambitious one.
That's pretty cool, though. That's awesome.
But it's going to take place in the same universe
Yeah.
that we created for Bullitt County. So it's there might be some little hidden Easter eggs in there that we might plop in. But we're pretty excited about that one.
And currently though we're just trying to really get the word out of Bullitt County because it's opening on the October 26th in AMC theaters nationwide, and including Louisville, Cincinnati. And so, it's got a full week-long engagement, maybe more if people turn out in droves in the first weekend. We might be able to get an extension on it. And then it's finishing up its festival circuit right now as we speak.
In fact, it plays in Paducah in a couple weeks.
That's
awesome.
right, yeah. And then it'll be on VOD, 100 platforms, Redbox, that kind of thing in February.
Awesome. Yeah.
So if you miss it in theaters, you can catch it that way.
Great, fantastic. Josh and David, thank you all so much for.
Before you go, so I got to ask, what is your go-to bourbon? I noticed you have a beautiful shelf of bourbon behind you, and I've been salivating just looking at it the whole time. I haven't even heard half of what you said.
So this is just behind me, a small portion of my collection. I have it kind of scattered all throughout. Like on my desk, I have a whole bunch of stuff too, and then downstairs, my wife is not super happy with the amount of bourbon that's in our house. But, so my go-to tends to be one of 2 things: either Elijah Craig small batch, or Wild Turkey 101. And Turkey.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's good
Turkey
stuff,
101 is such a great bourbon for the price and for the proof. I mean, there's not really anything else in the market like it, But yeah,
You can get that on Southwest Airlines.
Yes, you can.
And I do that very often.
And that's the only one that they'll carry too. I think because their founder was a big Wild Turkey 101 fan. I think that's why they have.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Anyway,
no complaints here.
No,
I saw
absolutely
Matthew McConaughey's got a new one out, like that he curated.
Yeah, Long Branch
with Wild Turkey. Is that what it is? Long
it's
Branch.
okay.
Is it good? It's fine.
It's okay.
It's okay. It's nothing special.
It's you might say all right.
Well, with that, I think we're gonna have.
That's a good way to end it.
Josh and David, thank you all so much. Best of luck to you guys with Bullitt County in the future. October 26th is when it opens nationwide. Be sure to go out and see that. If you want to follow up with them, if people want to follow up with you on social media, where can they do that?
We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, that kind of thing. It's the same tag all the way across the board. It's Mr. Pictures Film.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you guys again for being on the show. If you want to follow up with us on social media, you can use the handle @MyBourbonPod on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Become a patron of the show at patreon.com/MyBourbonPodcast for as little as $1 a month. If you have questions or comments, use thisismybourbonshop@gmail.com and then find our apparel and merch at bourbonshop.threadless.com. I'll be back with you next week. Josh and David, once again, thank you guys so much for being on. It's been a real treat chatting with you.
Thanks so much, Barry.
Absolutely. Thank you all for listening. Give us a 5-star rate and review on iTunes. It really helps us out. I'll see you next week, but until then, I'm Perry, and this is My Bourbon Podcast.